Are you tired of paid AI APIs? Are you really interested to give it a try with any Gen AI models, but you're not really interested to start subscribing to any of these paid services? Maybe you're afraid of installing these APIs before having some experiences and then start paying for these models. I think there is a solution for those who are interested to give it a try, these models, but also you don't want to go over the old subscription models and start paying for that. So there are lots of opportunities out there. One of them is LLaMA from Facebook, that you can install models locally. I already covered those topics in other video that you can find from my channel. But today I'm gonna show you LLaMA Studio. It's another tool which is quite cool because you can install it on your Windows, Linux or MacBook and get the models. And then after that, you can also connect to these models from outside. So this is quite cool that you can run almost most of the models on your local machine. And then after that, you can also connect to those models from outside of the LLaMA Studio. In this video, I'm going to cover LLaMA Studio installation, also walk you through a little bit of features of this application. And then after that, we jump to the N8N workflows and see how we can connect to these models from outside, and there we can create a simple AI agent and connect to one of the models. So what are you waiting? Let's dive into it. So first thing first, we need to download a studio. So for that, you can go to LLamastudio.ai, and from there you can choose the download based on your OS. LLaMA Studio can be downloaded on Windows OS and also Mac OS, and depends to your system specification. I think the installation might be different, but with most of the system it should work. So what I would like to say here is that sometimes what you see in the video, probably you might experience with some issues or some problems, because there is no guarantee that this setup might work everywhere on all setups with all computers with different settings. But at least when you're using the Windows and you're following the same steps as I'm doing, you should get the same result. If not, you need to really go to the documentation and see what might be the issue in your situation. So we click on the download, and here we can choose the OS. As you can see, it's available in Mac OS, Windows, Linux. Here is also the version that's available, and then I can click on the download. So once download is finished, you can click on the executable file to install the LLaMA Studio. The installation is very straightforward, so you don't have to set up anything or configure anything. You just wait for the installation to be finished. Once the installation is finished, you can close the window and then it will run the LLaMA Studio. Well, if you see this page, which means that you successfully installed LLaMA Studio, and now we can actually have a look and see what is inside the LLaMA Studio. So here it asks you to add one of the latest large language models, GEMA from Google, but for now we can skip this one. It also asks that it can run the LLaMA Studio once you log into your system. So I also uncheck this one because I don't want to have it running all the time. Rather, I would like to run it whenever I need. So I skip this window, and this is the page you see, or window you see, once you open the LLaMA Studio. From the left side, you have some menus, chat, developer side, models, also the discover side. We're gonna come to this menus a little bit later. If you go back to the chat, you can see on the chat menu you also have a lot of options here about the system prompt. System prompt is the configuration you set when you want to configure your chatbot to say how your chatbot should actually behave. You can also duplicate a chatbot easily here. If I click on the duplication, I can actually duplicate a chatbot. Here I can change the appearance to different things, and as you can see, there are a lot of options here to configure. So this is also quite nice. This gives you also some information about the RAM CPU, it also tells me no models currently loaded. So we have to add a model to this application to be able to run the chatbot. So I'm going to remove the extra chatbot from here. So if I go back to the discovery menu, this is the place that you can explore a lot of models. Here you can see a lot of different models, and you can also sort them out based on different criteria. For example, the best match, most likes, most downloads, or recently updated. You can also search for the model. For example, if I search for the LLaMA, I can find the old LLaMA models here. Previously, I created a video about installing LLaMA and running LLaMA models, but you can also use LLaMA Studio to run LLaMA models. For example, I can choose one of these models which is not really heavy and then install it on my computer. Let me see. So in order to find the lighter model, you need to look at the parameters. The less parameters is lower the size. So for example, the 70 billion parameter, it's quite large here. And you can also sort based on the most downloads, and it's interesting to see what are the models are the most interesting models by users. So this one is actually interesting one. It's LLaMA 3.1, but I don't want to install this one. But this one is better because it's just 1 billion, and probably that's a good one because from the size perspective is 1.32 gigabytes. So I download this model. As you can see here, it shows you the download progress. This one is also, I think, required for the LLaMA, and it's done. Let's see, a couple of seconds left, and then we have LLaMA ready. So the download is completed. You can load the model here. I click on the load model, and then I can actually test it in the chatbot. For example, there are some suggestions here. What is the capital of France? I can test. And it also shows you, interestingly, how much tokens are being used for processing this request. So let me see. Can you give me a script to shut down my PC? You can also see the CPU usage and memory usage once the model is working. So as you can see, it is working here properly, and so you can really use this application to install models on your computer locally. You don't have to pay for the models anymore, especially if you want to give it a try and see how different models are working. For example, if you go to the discovery and look for the DeepSeek, you can see a lot of DeepSeek models are here, so you can also install the DeepSeek model. As I said, you need to be careful about the size because, for example, this one is 186 gigabyte, which is quite big for, the normal usage. So it's a lot of different models. So for example, if we look for the Mistral, you can also see the Mistral here. And this one is also 15 gigabyte. And yeah, maybe I can go for something simple because I don't want to take the time of this video. So probably we can also skip this one. We already have one LLaMA, but what I'm gonna do here, it's already listed a lot of most downloaded models, so I'm gonna choose one of them to make sure that at least I have two models available. So I'm gonna this lightweight open model from Microsoft, and this is also a reasoning model, so let's download this one. This is also quite light, it's 2 gigabyte and 49, and let's download it. So the model is downloaded. We can load the model here, and as you can see, the model is, it's just loading here now on the top. Okay, let me just ask a really simple question. Can you give me any instruction to create a .NET project? Let me just fix this misspelling here. Interesting. Now you can also see the thinking process here, and because my question was quite generic, I just said .NET project. It is also trying to understand what kind of .NET projects we have and what might be the right answer for this question. So it's interesting. It's just generating a lot of information for the thinking process. I'm just interested to see what will be the final generated answer for this question. But this model is also very light, so my expectation is not that high. But again, I see that this is really working well, and you can still see the memory usage and the CPU here. One thing about the performance is important to consider is that when you're running models on your computer locally, depends on your system specifications, how much memory, CPU, and GPU you have, the performance might be different. In this case, the setup is very minimum because I'm using a virtual machine to run this model. So basically, there is no possibility to use my GPU here. It's also really good to see how the model is performing on this setup. So this is done, and yeah, it did an impressive, I think, job. The thinking process took 2 minutes and 33 seconds, which is good if you consider running on a virtual machine with low memory, low CPU. I think it's really reasonable. But the answer is quite nice because I can see that with this low light model, it still gives me a really good answer, well actually structured, and this is really nice. So this is the way that you can use LLaMA Studio to run models locally. In this way, you don't have to pay any money for the tokens, even though you see a lot of numbers here for the tokens. So the good thing is you don't have to pay any money for this service, even though it might be slower than OpenAI and any other paid services. But at least the good thing is for practicing, for testing new models, you don't have to necessarily subscribe to any API and pay for that. So what we want to do, we want to see if we can also connect it to the N8N. So for that, I would like to start from the scratch here, at least for people who have not been able to use N8N. In this case, the first thing you need to do, you need to go to the n8n.io. You can also find the link on the description and click on the description for that. So we click on the GitHub. On the GitHub page for the N8N, you can find the community version of the N8N. There are different ways to install the N8N locally. There are people might prefer to go with the Node.js installation, but I would always prefer with going to the way that is most easier one, and it mostly works on every actually workstation or computers or laptops. And that is with Docker. With the Docker, when we run in the container, it's an isolated environment. Regardless of the OS you're running, you can get the same result. And that's why I really recommend, instead of going to the other ways, if you are not really experienced with Node.js, preferably it's better to go with the Docker version. For that, it's very easy. You just copy these 2 lines and then go to the Docker desktop. You need to install Docker desktop on your Mac OS or on your Windows, and then you can click on terminal here and then just paste 2 lines of code here. What these 2 lines code does is that first create a data volume for the N8N is the persistent storage to save all of the informations, configurations from the N8N. And on the second line, it's going to run the actual container, which is running the N8N for you. So let's give it a try. Once the running is done, you will get the URL that you can use to run the N8N. So the running is finished. I mean, now we got the URL for the container for the N8N. I can click on the URL and you get this page. I get this page because I already had N8N before. Probably I need to use my actually email here to test it out. Hopefully I remember my password. Let's see. Okay, nice. So it worked. Previously I created some workflows here, as you can see. And in order to create a new workflow, you need to click on the new workflow on the top right. And this is the first actually page you get when you click on the new workflow. And this is a canvas. With the canvas, we are able to create a new workflows in N8N. So the first thing you need to do is to define how you want to trigger your workflow. The workflow is the automation process, can be running manually or can be called from somewhere else or in a different ways. So that's why we need to define our actually trigger here. So in this case, we can choose the chat because we want to create an agent and connect it to the model which we loaded from LLaMA Studio. So I click on the chat message, and this means that whenever I actually open the chat, I can run the chat, this workflow will be triggered. So the next thing we need to do is the agent. So this workflow is quite easy. As you can see, when you click on the agent, immediately it is connected to the chat node. And for that, it's also configure the user message automatically. So this is also really interesting from N8N that you don't have to configure everything. And there are things that when you connect the nodes to each other, it's being configured by N8N. So now, as you can see, we have AI agent here. With the AI agent, we have several connectors. We have chat model, we have memory, we have tool. And in order to get AI agent working, you need to configure at least one chat model. So for that, we can connect OpenAI, but we are not going to connect it to the OpenAI. We're going to change it to something else. And I'm going to create a new credentials. We are actually going to just only use this node to connect to the LLaMA Studio. The API key can be anything, so that's not a problem. So in order to fill the URL, that's the most important part, we need to go back to the LLaMA Studio, and it's here. So far we created we downloaded some models, we tested in the chatbot in the LLaMA Studio, but how we can actually connect to those models from outside. So for that, you can, you can go to the developers, and as you can see here, your actually endpoints are available here. Let me see if I need to start the server. When you start the servers and you get the status running, it means that your models are accessible from outside by this URL. So it means that you can connect to these models from outside. So what we need to do, we need just to pick this URL and paste it into the N8N. Let me see. And because we are running N8N on Docker, which means that from the N8N perspective, N8N doesn't know about this actually local host. So when we say local host, the local host doesn't refer from the N8N to the computer which is running the Docker. So in order to refer to that host, you need to do it differently. So we can say host.docker.internal. So this way, N8N can connect to actually the local host, the real one, the computer that you're running the container on. So this way, we should be able to connect to the models. We can actually save it, and as you can see, the connection tested successfully. If we close this, maybe I can change this to, maybe LLaMA Studio models. And here we can actually click on the drop down, and as a surprise, you see that we are able to see the models here. So I can click on the LLaMA 3.2, and from there, I should be able to use the AI agent. So now, if I go to the AI agent, I think you don't need to configure the system message here, because currently our AI agent is just connected to the model. So let's just give it a try. And before that, you might save your workflow to make sure that you're not going to lose any configuration you have done. So to test the AI agent, you just need to click on the open chat, and that way you can easily test your AI model. So maybe I can ask, the same question, Can you create a script to shut down my PC? So I want to show you a couple of things here, because as you can see, while the model is running, you can also see it inside N8N, which is really cool because you can see what's going on in your workflow. You can follow the process. And if something goes wrong, you can also see it visually, which is very interesting compared to the time that, for example, your pipeline was running as a code and it's not really visually possible to see what's going on. So here in N8N, you're able to see step by step what's going on in your workflow, and there it's really easy to follow the process. So as you can see, you might ask a really simple question from the model, and if it was OpenAI, probably I already had the answer maybe in a couple of seconds. In this case, it took around a minute, 50 seconds, but it still is fine. As I said, my system is very minimum, and that's why my expectation, I think it's not really high here. Anyway, I got a really good answer also here, and as you can see, it still does a really, really good job here. So you can actually use the model locally and use it also in N8N. The next thing you can see here is the logs. The logs in sitting here between two windows is the place that you can see the flow, how AI agent actually process your query and what kind of things happen. So for example, if you use the chat memory or tools or different things here, you can also see them in this window. For example, if I add the simple memory here and connect it to the agent, from now on my chatbot is gonna have also the memory. So which means until previous 5 messages are gonna be stored in the chat memory. So the AI agent is gonna remember my actually queries. So I'm gonna say something. My name is Alireza. Oh, I did misspell something. Let me just ask the same question. Do you remember my name? Let's see what will be the answer. So I'm gonna just show you how this chat memory is gonna help to enrich the model. So let's see if it gives me a right answer. So while I don't have personal memories like humans, I can recall to yourself as AI Alireza. So I misspelled my name here. Instead of my name is Alireza, I said my name AI Alireza, and it took it like that, which is fine. But it's quite nice that to see how model also remember the name. Okay, now let's go back to what I explained earlier about the process here. As you can see here, the AI agent said that it started with a simple memory, and then after that, it goes to the model to process. So as you can see, the simple memory is going to be part of the process in the beginning and then in the end. And that way, the chatbot is going to able to memorize the context of the conversation that you have with the chatbot. So you don't have to all the time explain what you said before or what do you want. So you can just continue with your conversation without telling a lot about the previous things. So the chatbot can remember. So if you want, you can also increase the context window to, the higher number, but that's also impact the performance of the chatbot. So I think all in all, now we were able to connect the LM Studio to the N8N, and this way you're not only able to download the local models, you're also able to create a workflow, agentic workflows with it, and for free. You don't have to spend any money on this practice. This setup is really nice because you can get the models on your computer. You can also install the N8N for free. So at least before you start paying any money for any of these subscriptions, you might get some experience first, and then you can start looking for more actually advanced projects and experiences. I hope you liked this video. If you're more interested about more advanced topic, you can join to my school community. Over there are a lot of experts, people, they are actually sharing their knowledge. I'm also able to spend more time personally to dive into your personal project and see how I can help you there. So Don't forget to like and subscribe this channel to get the future videos, and see you in the next one.